What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So I've decided to bring back a series that I have not done since like February of last year. It has basically been a full year at this point where I did my last redraft. I love to do redrafts where we go back kind of with context and give you the new top 10 of that draft if they were to redraft today. So we are starting with 2020. Yes, these guys are still only 21 or 22 years old, but basically everybody from this draft is going to turn into something, or at least in their rookie year or in their second, third, or I think Tim Stützle's even in his fourth year in Lafreniere. So we're going to get into it. Up first, let's see the actual top 10 that happened with this draft before we redraft. Lafreniere, Byfield, Stützle, Raymond, Sanderson, Drysdale, Holtz, Quinn, Rossi, Perfetti. So as you can see, this was a pretty damn good top 10. There's going to be a lot of repeat guys that are still within the top 10, a couple guys that do fall off, but really no identifiable bust right now. Yes, there'll be some guys that maybe develop into just like half decent NHLers, but this is a pretty damn good top 10 as of right now. And overall in this draft, there is a bunch of studs. I'm going to give you some honorable mentions that just barely missed out, and you're going to realize how good this draft is, even though they're 21, 22 years old. Dawson Mercer, Anton Lundell, JJ Peterka's playing fantastic. Jamie Drysdale just got traded, put up a point in his first game with the Flyers. Caden Gooley, Ridley Gregg, Devin Levi just hasn't really had that rookie year that we expected, and Luke Evangelista. Those are the guys that are not. They would still be 11 through 17. I think I listed like 7 or 8 guys. Those guys are studs. Those guys easily have an argument for the 10, maybe even the 9 spot. But without further ado, going 10th overall, the Jets took Cole Perfetti here. They're not going to be taking Cole Perfetti here. They're going to be taking Connor Zary. Connor Zary really burst on the scene this season. He started in the AHL, played so well, got the call-up, had 8 points in his first 8 games. Now he's up to 21 and 31 on the season, which puts him around on pace for 56 points. And yeah, I've been really impressed with his overall game. The him, Kadri, and Pospisil line have sneakily been one of the best lines in the entire NHL. Right now, they have an 84% goal percentage when they're on the ice together. They're outscoring opponents 11-2. In the analytics, also back that they've been elite. They have a 58.8 expected goals percentage together, and Zary has been a massive reason why. I think he can be a very skilled 65 to 70 point winger going forward. Don't think he's going to be the future franchise piece of the Calgary Flames. They definitely need to find a legit first line center, first line stud right wing, left wing in the draft at some point. But Connor Zary looks like he's developing into a very solid first liner. At number 9, the Minnesota Wild took Marco Rossi. And they're going to take Marco Rossi again. There's no movement in this. And Marco Rossi, a really rough start to his career. He dealt with like serious COVID in 2021. I think he didn't play hockey for that entire year. It was not looking good. And even last year, in his first year getting NHL exposure, he only had 1 point in 19 games. They sent him back down to the AHL where he had 51 points in 53 games. He is a smaller guy at 5'9", so I think he just needed another year because he played in the AHL the prior year too. I think he just needed another year developing against pros, against more physical competition, bulk up a little bit. I think he's at like 183 or 184 right now at 5'9". It's a pretty bulky dude, and it is clearly translated. As of right now, he has 12 goals, 12 assists for 24 points in 40 games. And when you look at him on the Minnesota Wild, he leads the entire Minnesota Wild in even strength points. 21 of his points right now are even strength. He has a 2.26 5-on-5 expected goals against per 60, which is 8th in the entire NHL. So he is really developing, getting that Joel Eriksson-ek mold of that fantastic two-way center. I think he has more offensive potential than a Joel Eriksson-ek. Still, we got to see if this continues, considering how bad he was last year at the NHL level. But I'm very high on him. I think I loved him as a prospect. I thought he was going to be a legit number 1 center. And right now it seems like he's back on track, developing as a potential number 1 center on that Minnesota Wild team. At number 8, the Sabres picked Jack Quinn. Not going with Jack Quinn this time. They are going with Seth Jarvis. Seth Jarvis had a very good rookie year with 40 points in 68 games, then kind of took a step back, 39 points in 82 games in his sophomore season. Part of that was because his shooting percentage dropped from 15.5% as a rookie to 7.5%, but he seems to be fully on track yet again this season. He has 14 goals, 14 assists for 28 points in 40 games, back to shooting 14.9%. He's on pace for 29 goals and 29 assists at 21 years old. That is pretty damn good, 58 points, and he's playing 1859 on the Carolina Hurricanes. He is a massive piece of that forward core. He can play up and down the lineup. He's played a lot on the third line with Martin Nook and Jordan Staal, so it's not like he's been stapled to Sebastian Aho, and Aho's having this career year, and Jarvis is kind of eating off him. Jarvis has been up and down the lineup and is still on pace for almost 30 and 30. I think he's a very good two-way player, and I think if he continues developing properly, I don't think he's going to be a 35 and 35 guy, but he could end up being a 30 and 40 guy while also being a very good defensive winger. So I'm very high on Seth Jarvis as of right now. At the 7th overall spot, the Devils, they ended up taking Alexander Holtz. They're going to go Alexis Lafreniere here. Lafreniere had 40 points last year. This year, 25 points in 38 games. He's probably going to, barring injury, he's going to absolutely smash past that 40-point high that he had last year. And yeah, him, Trocheck, and Panarin, although he is lucky to play with a guy like Panarin, he is also a reason why that line has been so good, a top 15 line in all of hockey. I got shit for not having them in my top 10. They're definitely a top 15 line in all of hockey, and he's fit in very good with the playmaker like Panarin. His playmaking has been a lot more impressive in terms of, honestly, Panarin's like the sniper this year on that goddamn line. So I'm looking at it, I've been very impressed with Alexis Lafreniere taking that next step that I kind of expected Capo Caco to maybe take. Instead, Lafreniere has taken that, and I don't think he's ever going to be the franchise piece that we expected at first overall. This guy was one of the most hyped up prospects probably of the last decade, but I think similarly to Seth Jarvis, he can end up being 70-point winger at this point, 70, 75 point, especially if he continues to play with Panarin and keeps on developing. I think he has a very good future in front of him. At 6th overall, the Anaheim Ducks selected Jamie Drysdale, who obviously they traded. That pick didn't really work out how they were expecting. But in this draft, they get Lucas Raymond to pair with Trevor Zegras. He has 32 points in 40 games this year for the Detroit Red Wings. He is the third wheel on that line with Dylan Larkin and Alex DeBrincat. He's playing fantastic in his own right, but how much of that success does come with playing two players that are far better than him right now? We'll see, but he's definitely on track compared to 57 points as a rookie at like 19 years old, then took a big step back, only had I think like 43 or 44. So he's back on track. It looks like he's going to probably be sniffing 60 points this year. And I think he is a really good fit on that line, considering Larkin's more of a playmaker, DeBrincat's more of a sniper. He's kind of a good mix of both for them. So I think going forward on that line, will he ever be like a Lafreniere? We were expecting after his rookie year, after he had 57 points, we were expecting he was expected to be the future franchise forward. I think Larkin and DeBrincat are going to stay the franchise forwards in Detroit, but he is definitely going to be an elite 70 to 80 point winger playing with them over the next 5 years. I think that's without a doubt. This year kind of cemented that. At the number 5 spot, the Senators, they went with Jake Sanderson. In this redraft, they are going with Cole Perfetti. Cole Perfetti, I'm very high on him. I love Cole Perfetti. 30 points in 52 games last year. He got hurt for a long stretch. This year, 14 goals, 15 assists for 29 points in 40 games. And unlike some people might be screaming, Raymond's been more productive. Perfetti's been mainly playing on that Jets second or even third line. Velarde, Ehlers, and Scheifele are cooking on their own. They're one of the best lines in hockey. But Perfetti has been driving his own line to pretty success. He's playing with Nemestikov. I don't know how to pronounce that. That name is always giving me trouble. But in Iafallo, those two guys, Vladislav Nemestikov and Alex Iafallo, and he has been driving that line. One of the main reasons why the Jets have been able to get depth scoring this year. So I think if you threw him on that first line instead of Velarde or Ehlers, he probably has 35, 36, 37 points in 40 games right now. He's on pace for 65, 70 points, but he has been really efficient in helping drive his own line. Such an impressive playmaker, has a very good shot of his own. I had him as like my number 6 prospect in the 2020 draft. Obviously ended up falling to 10th, thankfully for the Winnipeg Jets. And I think going forward, he probably is going to get the bump eventually because he's younger than Velarde. I think he's eventually going to get like a bump to the first line, or once Kyle Connor gets back, their lines will be more balanced. But I think Perfetti is going to be near a point per game going forward in the next 2 to 3 years. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And he's also pretty solid defensively. He's an underrated defensive player. He's put up pretty solid defensive results the last 2 years. At the number 4 spot, Lucas Raymond initially went here. It's going to be Quinton Byfield. Quinton Byfield, They're going to get that center to put behind Dylan Larkin. Quinton Byfield, I think he's taken that next step this year, obviously. 10 goals, 18 assists for 28 points in 37 games. Last year, I apparently was playing with both of his wrists were goddamn sprained. So as a result, he had like 3 goals in 53 games, or he had 22 points. It was not good last year from Quinton Byfield. I didn't know if I believed that excuse, or that like story that both of his wrists were sprained. But based on how he's playing this year, those doubts have gone absolutely out of my mind. Clearly something was wrong with him last year, because he looks like a completely different player, way more willing to shoot the puck, way more of much crisper passer with his passes. But when Quinton Byfield, I think, again, this guy was like a Tage Thompson, definitely was a higher regarded prospect, but he was 6'5", 6'6". It wasn't always going to happen overnight with a guy like Quinton Byfield. It took a couple years, and he is fully breaking out as we speak, and especially considering the guy that he plays with, his mentor in a way, is Anze Kopitar. There's few guys that I would rather learn under than Anze Kopitar. The only other guy's probably like Sidney goddamn Crosby. So I think he's going to keep on developing and turn into a legit point per game, just 6'5" monster kind of center. And obviously the Detroit Red Wings would really love to have that right now. And number 3, the Senators went with Tim Stützle. They're going to get Jake Sanderson. They keep Jake Sanderson in after signing a massive deal that got some criticism. I didn't think that it was that warranted. He has taken another positive step, maybe not the dominant step that we were expecting, but he's not getting paid quite yet. Last year, he had 32 points in 77 games. This year, he has 20 points in 36. So that offense has taken another step, in part because he's getting more looks on the power play. He's risen from 21 minutes a night to 23 minutes a night. His defensive results haven't been as impressive last year, but he was playing less in some more sheltered minutes. But I still think going forward, this guy is going to be a 50-ish point number 1 defenseman that gives you very good defense, and at $8 million, that is perfectly reasonable. I'm not panicking by any means about Jake Sanderson, because he hasn't taken that fantastic step and isn't already that 55 point beast. He's still only 21 years old, and I'm very happy with how he's developing. Number 2, obviously the Kings. They took Quinton Byfield. They get Brock Faber here. They get Drew Doughty's future replacement. And Faber has obviously popped off as a rookie, 20 points in 40 games right now, on pace for 41 points. Do the quick little math. Playing 24, 41 a night. He has fully assumed the role as the Minnesota Wild's number 1 defenseman. Him and Brodin were like top 5 pair in the entire league, in my opinion. While Brodin was healthy, they were absolutely cooking. And even when Brodin went down, Faber was still absolutely fantastic. He has a top 5 expected goals per 60 in the entire NHL right now. And I think this year he's been playing like a top 25 defenseman in the entire NHL, on pace for 41 points, elite defensively. And considering he's doing that as a 21-year-old, and he has a late birthday. He has an August birthday, cut off September 15th. So he was a month away from being in the 2021 class. So he is a very young guy for this draft class, and he's already emerging as a number 1 defenseman. I think he's pretty easily number 2, and might even have a case for number 1 if we get a bigger sample size of how these two are playing. And at number 1, the Rangers obviously took Lafreniere, and in this scenario, they go with Tim Stützle. Tim Stützle's having a down year. There's no doubt about that, but a down year for him after having 39 goals and 51 assists. A down year for him is still on pace for 77 points. Granted, that is only 16 goals, but Senators have been a train wreck. I still think Tim Stützle is, well, maybe not the eventual top 5, top 6, top 7 center that we were expecting one day. I still think he's going to develop into a very good, get back to 90, probably 95, 100-ish points. He is still an absolute stud. The offensive talent is still no doubt there. Definitely needs to round out his game. Definitely needs to dive less whenever he's playing. But I still think Tim Stützle is going to be a legit number 1 center. And given the track record, he is pretty easily the pick at number 1, considering we don't have a big sample size of Faber. A guy like Byfield has only really came on as of late. Sanderson hasn't put together a full season as a number 1 defenseman. Tim Stützle still goes first overall in this redraft. Maybe we talk about it at the end of the season or the start of next season if he's still not getting back on track compared to what he was doing last year. But this is the full redraft. Stützle to the Rangers, Faber to the Kings, Sanderson still to the Senators, Byfield to the Red Wings, Perfetti to the Senators, Raymond to the Ducks, Lafreniere to the Devils. I'd love to see that. Jarvis to the Sabres, Rossi still to the Minnesota Wild, and Connor Zary to the Jets. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? Who would you move up? Who would you move down? Any of those guys on honorable mention that you would throw on? Devin Levi was close. I still think he's going to be a very good starting goalie. based on what we've seen this season, I just couldn't really put him. But let me know. Would love to hear it, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.